Mohamed Mihad, the Chief Commercial Officer of Maldives Airports Company Limited. Mihad will be discussing Velana International Airport and tourism development, a key component of enhancing the luxury travel experience. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mihad.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you. And good afternoon to you all. So, actually, this is my second time at Hotelier Maldives Forum. The first one I attended was in Kurumba, as I remember. It was in 2022, and there were a lot of interesting presentations on that forum. I was not able to come in the morning, but I hope my presentation would be as interesting as the presentations I saw in 2022. In all cases, I'll try to keep the presentation to the time, so even if you get bored, it won't be for too long. So here, I have been attending few forums in this year about tourism. In almost all of these forums, there is a presentation about Velana Airport. And it is always focused on the new terminal and the developments around it. But in my presentation today, I'm going to address something which is much more fundamental, which is the relationship between the airport and the tourism sector, and how the things we do at the airport impacts the tourism sector, and the changes that happen at the tourism industry, how it gets reflected in the airport business. So just to give you a bit of context, I'll take you through a timeline of significant events that has happened in the past few decades at the airport. So I hope this works. Okay, yeah. So the story here, starting at 1964 with the first runway strip. And then, yeah, it was moving too fast, I suppose. Okay. Just then we move into 1972, which is the year we saw the arrival of the first tourist. And then in 1976, we embarked on a very ambitious project for the airport development. We built the first runway, a proper runway at the airport, and that was the runway we have been using until 2022. And this is still in use, and it is used as our main taxiway at the airport. So from 1976, this doesn't move the timeline, so hopefully, yeah, it comes to 1993, we saw the introduction of seaplane into the tourism industry. In 2023, we saw the we reaching around 500,000 passengers, and then the completion of the current terminal that we are using at the airport now. In 2008, we came up with our first master plan, and then we started implementing what was in the master plan in 2016. This is what we did under the 2016 infrastructure development project. You can see almost all of the projects that we carried out, and most of it is complete now, and some, of course, the last one, you would not forget, is still in progress. And I also have put a rendering of the new terminal in case you forget. So this is how it looks once finished. So going through the sort of the timeline which I showed you, you must have noticed that every development at the airport is very strongly correlated with a change in the tourism sector. The airport was built to cater for the tourism sector, and the subsequent developments that came along is directly related to the developments that happened at the tourism sector. So when two things are very, very strongly correlated, in this case almost perfectly, I would say, so the change in one will have a significant impact on the other variable. So what we do at the airport really matters to the tourism sector and success of it. So just to illustrate or sort of show this relationship between what we do at the airport and what happens at the tourism industry, I'll start with how we make money at the airport. So we make around $500 million a year at airport, which is the top line, half of which comes through the sale of fuel. And the rest we can put into two neat baskets. One is aeronautical revenue, which is driven by the number of the flights that lanes on the runway. So basically, this includes the charges such as ground handling and navigation and so forth. And it comes to non-aeronautical revenue, what is meant by non-aeronautical revenue is basically the revenues we earn from F&B sales, duty-free, and stuff like that. But so theoretically, it's always easy for an airport, at least in the short term, to make more revenue, to increase the revenue if we tap into aeronautical revenues. And it is always difficult to make to grow the non-aeronautical revenues in a very short space of time. Because in case of non-aeronautical revenues, you need the creativity, you need sort of the investments, and you need the commercial schemes that will make the passengers spend their money at the airport. And also you need to increase the dwell time of the passengers within the airport boundaries. So it's always difficult. So when the infrastructure projects goes on, or the airport wants to sort of develop the airport through their own money or through borrowed money, usually they try to tap into aeronautical revenues. But what happens when we touch into the aeronautical revenue stream is the flying into the Maldives gets more expensive. So the flights that come to Maldives will increase their ticket prices to, so of course they also have to make money, so which will translate into more costs in the hospitality sector. And hospitality sector is not immune to the price sensitivities. So just before I go into the operational details of the airport and try to show these kind of relationships, I would just like to put this about the airport operation, which is that the airport we run at Hotelier is one of the most unique airports in the world. It's not like that somebody told us that, but with very good reason, we believe it is the case. Because one of the very, very significant difference between another airport and what we do at the Hotelier is, like when you arrive at an airport in some other country, you just hit the curbside, take a taxi, and go to wherever you want to go. But in the Maldives, it's not so straightforward. What happens is, you collect your bag, come out into the concourse area, 40% of the people take a speedboat. Around 30 to 40% of the people get into a bus, goes to another terminal, and take a seaplane. And 10% of the people goes to a taxi queue, and another 10% moves into a domestic terminal and get a connection to one of the domestic airports. And also, we run the largest seaplane operation in the world within the terminal. So now we have a situation where we only take a fraction of passengers where Changi gets in Singapore, whereas we have, in terms of number of aircraft movements, at par with Changi. So it's like quite a unique situation we have at our airport. And this is something which I just wanted to show you. So usually always the case, in a day you have 24 hours. So that's what we accept. But in case of, for the people at the airport, we don't get 24 hours in a day. So all of our traffic, we have to squeeze into a window of 6 hours. That is the 65% of our arrivals we are squeezing into a 6-hour window. And 35% of it into a 3-hour window. So you could just imagine, you can imagine the sort of implication this will have on the infrastructure development. We have to sort of overdevelop our terminal because the operational hours are quite short. And it's very different from an airport which has the traffic evenly spread out throughout the day. And so the cost will go up, and cost of flying into the Maldives to recover that investment should go up as well, theoretically. So why this happens is because, as I said, around 40% of the people take a seaplane. So the seaplanes can't fly at night. They have to fly in the day, and the flights that arrive to the Maldives has to squeeze themselves to this window. And I know like most of the developments in the tourism sector that's happening in the Maldives is now happening farther away from Male, because there is no more space in Male at all. Or Male is like, Male atoll is very, very crowded. This means there is going to be more demand for seaplane operations. Of course, when there is more demand, we can always sort of buy more seaplanes, build new terminals, build docks and so forth. But all of this has to operate within a single airspace, which is quite limited. So the number of the aircrafts that we can manage safely within our airspace is going to be limited. I accept that right now as we speak, the terminal is one of the biggest problems. But maybe going into the future, maybe 5 years down the line, if we don't find a viable alternative for this, maybe, I hold no opinion, but maybe this could be something we have to think about, whether this would constrain the development of the tourism sector, because people has to go to the resort and they can't take a boat to Adu at all. And this is something also quite interesting, at least for me. So in 2012, the top, I quite don't know, it's a pie chart, I think. So what we have here reflects the composition of our room stock. So in 2012, we have 90% of our rooms are in resorts. When it comes to year 2023, the proportion is only 74%. Then here at the below that, you could see the sort of in terms of aircraft movements and passengers, the compositions of low-cost versus full-service carriers. So the composition has directly reflected on what happened in the tourism sector. And going forward, what we do, so the demands of a full-service carrier is a little bit different from a low-cost carrier. And as we also have to shift all of these, we have to squeeze all of these airlines into that window which I said. The airlines we decide to prioritize would have an implication on which sector really performs in the future. So these were the decisions we have to make together with the tourism industry. And here you can see we are one of the very most connected airports in the region, I would say. We have 40 plus airlines going into 35 destinations. And almost all of our history since 1962, right? We have been maintaining an open sky policy. What we mean by an open sky policy is we do not keep restriction for airlines originating from a certain destination. They can do unlimited number of travel into the Maldives and unlimited number of airlines as well. So I would like to believe, I'm a fan of the sort of the open competition or free market. And I would like to believe this have served us well in terms of reducing the fares, in terms of improving the service quality. But is there something else that is happening right now which we have to really seriously think about this? So now we can see here 35% of our traffic is dominated by 2 Middle Eastern carriers. So what is happening here right now is sort of a monopolization of this route. And what would be the implication of that on the airfares? I mean, again, I have no sort of an opinion. I don't want to pass a specific opinion. Maybe we need to think more about this and see if we need to change it, or we need to address this problem, or just let it be the case. So, and also, so I have said a lot of things, and I'll try to finish within 15 minutes, as I promised. And so, how we go forward from here? I think we have now established clearly the relationship between tourism and the airport business. So how we move forward as an airport? So I think airport has been for so long been a casual observer. We always thought we sit at the fringe of the tourism industry. But I would like to believe we are at the heart of the tourism industry. What we do matters to the tourism industry. So we have to act responsibly. And one of the key things we have to do is we have to actively pursue a route development strategy. And we have to pursue that with consultation from the industry. Where the industry focuses their money, we have to focus our money as well. And together we can develop more routes, more markets. Because once airline decides to come or fly to a certain market, they do a lot of investment on that route. And this is the only way the airline generates the traffic. For example, when Malaysia Airline started operating this year to the Maldives, they went into the national breakfast show at Australia, and they discussed about the Maldives. So that's sort of investment, free investment we get when we try to bring sort of more airlines into the Maldives. And also here, I would like to believe that the airport we run at the Velana is very unique. So we don't need to emulate Changi or Dubai in Hulule. We have to develop something which is very uniquely Maldivian. Because 90% of our passengers are tourists. They arrive here for leisure. They arrive here for relaxation. And this is something which we have to create at the airport. And we cannot have a different service standard at the airport and expect a different service standard at the industry. So we receive someone comes to the reception of the Maldives, and they don't get really impressed by that. And then they go to the resort, come back, and it's just a roller coaster. So it doesn't work. So we have to, and also, like, we are owned by, 100% owned by the government, you know, the mindset sometimes that comes with it. And the history is quite turbulent as well, in our case, at least in Velana Airport. So, but what we are trying to pursue is that we can't, the people like who comes to our airport, they save like their entire life for this specific journey. And it's not fair for us not to give them the service that they seek. So we as the airport, we have to have a service-oriented mindset, and we have to be working to improve the service. And we are not running an airport, we are just running a hotel there. Just the passengers happen to come by plane only. So that's the only difference. And in case of the revenue strategy, we have to take the interest of the industry at heart, and we have to consult with industry when we plan to generate money for the airport. And I'm also very keen on industry collaborations. This year we have hosted Air Service World Congress, which is actually a forum for airport leaders come together, discuss, and develop new routes. So I think we have to bring people from airlines which we want to attract to the Maldives, let them experience the Maldives, what Maldives has to offer, and let them convince them to start the route into the Maldives. So that's quite a lot, as I said. So I know we have a lot of complaints about the airport, but we ran a survey about the customer satisfaction experience, and this was what we got. Probably they come to the resorts, and they were so happy when they reached the airport. They just wouldn't know how they would respond to the surveys. But this is what we got nevertheless. And I was told from here, do not click because it takes you to some link. So I'll stop here. It's time to stop. And thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. All right.